Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise. It is this morning. I'm Chamberlain.
Amaya Makinde, good morning and welcome to the program. Today is April the 15th. It's a Wednesday morning. You're welcome. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is Victoria Island, Lagos. Of course, you know that Victoria Island is a very wide expanse of space. I should ask you, actually, Chamberlain, what part of Victoria Island is this one? Well, I'm testing your knowledge of Lagos now. I don't think that you would have lost touch, right? So, what part of Lagos Island is this? Well, just as a clue or a hint, this is where somewhere around here, where the location where the Invictus Games held, which Prince Harry and his spouse came for in Lagos, Nigeria. So, any ideas?
You want me to spell the phone for those who you want to ask to guess? You're still owing them, don't forget. So they'll still come for you. Better check your DM before they come publicly and tag you.
Oh boy, well, Chamberlain, that's a nice way of escaping the question, but that's fine. I mean, but this is Lagos, the commercial capital of the nation. The weather at this time is about 30 degrees, feels something like 38 degrees. Humidity is at 82%, and sky, as you can see, looks beautiful. Just look at that sight, something really, really beautiful. A sight for sore eyes, as to say. Chamberlain, again I say, thank God Kayla is not here right now. You must miss this sight. You must miss this sight.
Well, one thing I just kind of see, even looking at that, on the island near that multinational oil company office,
Yeah.
we just don't take time out and enjoy the aquatic life. We're so bogged down with daily challenges, trying to eke a living on a regular basis. If you're not trying to queue for petrol, you're trying to avoid traffic to get home in good time and well, if you ever become a living wage, which labor is asking for. So, and as such, we don't see a lot of investments in that sector. You see the reports we have time and again about hundreds of people who die in boat accidents because officials don't pay attention to all of this. We don't seem to have a deliberate plan to ensure transportation is a thing. It's deliberate. We approach it as such. We just see it, just do it whichever way. They're professionals who handle all of those things, but we don't seem to pay this kind of attention to. So
Yeah.
maybe who knows?
One of the things that's quite prevalent these days, Chamberlain, that we don't even seem to give much attention to is what is now being increasingly popular as mental health. This kind of sight from time to time, and that's why some people actually prefer high-rise buildings, skyscrapers and all. For one reason, such a sight will definitely calm you down. Not to stand on areas where your life is threatened because you are afraid of heights, but such a sight early in the morning, just looking around, gives you some real calm, appreciating the wonders of the things that God has made. That look at the top of your screen right now, the beautiful skyline of Lagos Island, the Victoria Island in Lagos, the island part of Lagos. It's really, really something that we should give attention to. Your mental health is important. Such views is one of the reasons that will bring you this skyline every morning on Sunrise Daily. So, Chamberlain, what's happening today?
There are several scenarios, but much later, I'm sure that we'll let them see some of the activities that will go on after the presidency, everywhere. So from the court, they'll get to see that moving forward. But I think we'll just go ahead and let you tell us, have a look at some of the dailies this morning.
Let's start a look at the papers this morning with the New Telegraph. Another academic disruption looms. ASU gives FG 2 weeks to reconstitute councils, meet other demands. And look at the writer says Nigeria's education budget lowest in West Africa. Those stories you'll find on pages 2 and 28 of the New Telegraph newspaper this morning. Some other concerns about the electricity tariff is on the front page of this Nigeria newspaper. 95% of protesters not affected by hike, says Adilabu, power minister. The writer says cautions Labour not to derail power sector reforms. It's the lead story of this Nigerian newspaper this morning. And look to the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. What does it say to you today? The Vanguard newspaper leads with this one. Minimum wage. FG calls committee meeting. Labour insists on May 31 deadline. Vows to down tools if FG states OPS to present proposals. Labour maintains call for living wage, says government racing against time. That's the latest story of the Vanguard newspaper for you this morning. And other papers will definitely have the same story at different levels of prominence. Daily Independent this morning leads with this one. FG to deploy 20 trillion naira pension funds to drive economic growth. And look at the writers to invest in housing, power, rails, roads, technology. OK is 96.297 billion naira for generators for State House street lights. Bus terminals. Approves private partnership to transform infrastructure, housing sector. Begs NLC TUC not to derail plan for electricity sector. Details of that story continue on the inside pages, and at the bottom of the picture, ASU threatens strike over non-constitutional varsities governing councils. Warns Tinubu academic staff dying over cost of living. NEC reconvenes in 2 weeks to take decisive action. Details of that also continue on the inside pages. The Guardian newspaper, illegal mining. Nigeria's $1.8 billion gold reserves mined into private pockets. Gosh, $1.8 billion. Please don't start the conversion in your head. But the details you find on the front page of the paper, well, the infographics on the front page, the story itself is on page 6 of the paper this morning. Blueprint newspaper, shift from presidential system. Obasanjo backs reps group, advocates Afro-democracy. Interesting. Says Western liberal democracy has failed its originators. Group gets 500 essays from Nigerian students, holds national discourse July 1. You find the details on the front page, and it continues on the inside pages of the Blueprint newspaper today. Nigerian News Direct leads with digital economy. FG unveils SPV to improve internet penetration, GDP growth, to build third longest terrestrial fiber optic backbone in Africa, targets 1.5% GDP growth, 70% broadband penetration. Definitely a Herculean task, wouldn't you say? But the details you'll find on page 9 of the paper this morning. The Leadership newspaper has this on its front page. Airport access fees. No more VIPs. Everybody must pay, FG declares. Stories on page 6. Look at the writers. Cite losses to preferential treatment targets 10 billion naira revenue. Tinubu, Shetima, Akpabio, Abbas, others not exempted. Deploy technology for monitoring. That's subscribed to stakeholders. Again, the story is on page 6 of the Leadership newspaper this morning. The Nigerian Observer leads with Nigeria seeks ECOWAS member collaboration to develop region's tourism. About time, I hear some people say, but that's the story on the front page of the Nigerian Observer this morning. The Daily Times newspaper has this not too pleasant news. Uproar over fresh quit notice to Fulanis from Hausa land. That story you'll find on page 4. And if you pick a copy of the Daily Trust newspaper, this is what you'll find on the front page of the Lagos edition. Terrorists abduct over 80 in Katsina. Women among victims. Military confirms Sunday's soldiers killing in same area. Find the details of that story on the inside pages. And at the bottom of that picture, ASU gives Tinubu 2 weeks to constitute varsities governing councils. Details on the inside pages. And those are the papers we have for you this morning. Which is your own take? Well, the first of my take this morning, the papers, is both on the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper and right there somewhere top right of this Nigerian newspaper. But I like the angle on the front page of the Daily Independent. It says, one of the writers actually, OK is 96.297 billion naira for generators for state house, street lights, and bus terminals. You need to get the details of the story to understand exactly what that writer is saying. Because what it looks like to anyone, just at face value, is okay, so it seems like we're giving up on getting our power sector right. Budgeting billions of naira, tens, almost 100 billion naira for generators. The question you want to ask is, are you buying the generators or are you maintaining the generators, fueling the generators, you know, for state house street lights and all of that? But hey, that's just one of those things that you may want to take a second look at this morning just to be sure that we're getting it right. But I also like the angle, the fact that there is some effort being made to drive economic growth. I will always speak to one thing. That's, again, that's on the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper this morning. I'll always speak to one thing in particular, and that is collaboration. Collaboration between the federal government and states. Because while the initiatives may be coming from the federal government, it is at the macro level. It is the states that's going to disseminate all of these and localize, domesticate these initiatives in the states. While the federal government has citizens, the states have indigents, and the indigents affect whatever happens in each of the states. We cannot talk about the national development without the states developing. Remember, we still have the multidimensional poverty figures. I don't know if there's been any review to that. We want to escape poverty, and then we continue to see the things we're seeing. Things we can't, as the president said once, was once quoted as saying, we can't continue to have business as usual when we have such humongous issues to deal with as a nation. As individuals, we have equal responsibilities in this regard. So I'm appealing. Let there be this collaboration, because we cannot have economic growth at the federal level if we are not having economic growth at the states level. Whatever initiative the federal government is coming up with, if the states do not partner, if the states do not collaborate with the federal government, we cannot have the kind of economic growth we want. That's my take this morning, Chamberlain, on the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper.
Oh, yeah. I mean, equally concerning is what you also highlighted at the front page of Daily Trust, where if you look at that figure, you know, people will be watching and wondering, how do these things happen? And the figure you see here, 80 people abducted in Katsina. So it's because I mean, this was barely 24 hours after they had attacked a military facility in that same area, and then 80 were kidnapped in that same locality. So it raises a lot of questions. I know that the security agencies always say that they're doing what they can, and chances are that they are, but shouldn't we also sit back and review the strategy? Yes, the military is supposed to protect the territorial integrity of this country. But if they are all over the place in terms of trying to ensure that these things happen, and so when you look at the front page of Daily Trust and you see terrorists abduct over 80 in Katsina, of course, women among them, they always can. The military confirms Sunday soldier killing in the same area. It raises more questions than answers. What about policing? This is one area. Okay, well, maybe they'll say at the moment, there's that amendments, the planned amendments of or review of the Constitution that is ongoing, and this is one of the issues that they plan to consider. But we just hope that there has to be that wider consultation, and not that they're already set on what they want to do and then use, quote unquote, the consultation as a smoke screen to go ahead and do it the way they always wanted to do it. Because look, we can't afford to have, what's the point of having, if at all we're going to get it, restructuring of the police security architecture, and it doesn't serve the purpose? We have to ensure that right from the local government, the state, and at the federal level, you have that multi-layer policing wherein the capabilities are there, funding for security agencies to ensure that response time people having trusting the agencies to do what they can. All of those measures have to be in place if you want to get the kinds of investors, and not that they, despite paying all the taxes, the complaints still there, as we've seen time and again, because in spite of what you're doing, it is kind of headline, are the headlines that people see, investors see, and then pull back and say, look, how do we know that if we go there, we won't fall victim to this? So we need to address that moving forward. Okay, so that said, we will be back in a moment. Don't go away.
Cabinet members and other members of the Federal Executive Council converge on the council chamber in the presidential villa. With the arrival of President Bola Tinubu, the FEC meeting that began the day before gets underway. A few hours later, some ministers appear to brief State House correspondents. Among the approvals from the meeting is one initiative aimed at infusing funds into the infrastructure and housing sector to stimulate economic growth. It will also enhance job creation and inclusive growth.
There is available in Nigeria long-term funds to fund infrastructure projects, and it's within the pension, life insurance and investment fund industry generally. There is upwards of 20 trillion naira available, and much of it is in short-term funding that it doesn't need to be. Pension money is long-term. We are now able to announce, and with the full knowledge and support of all parties, that there will be an initiative to fund growth through investment in infrastructure, including housing, provision of mortgages, long-term mortgages, 25-year mortgages at relatively low interest rates.
The minister also touched on government's efforts to encourage electric and CNG transportation in the country.
The procurement is on. 600 buses are on their way, and as I said, they are not all to be purchased fully built. There's also a large portion that all the assemblers that are available in Nigeria have been given business, they've been given orders. Also, there are about 30,000 conversion kits coming in.
Council also considered the controversy surrounding the cybersecurity levy on electronic banking transactions.
The position of government is that that policy has been suspended. That policy has been put on hold. That is the position of government for now. It is undergoing some form of review.
The Minister of Power also spoke on the approvals to help enhance the national grid and power supply in the country.
For the contract for procurement of 10 numbers of 500 kV, 33 kV, 415 volts Artin transformers, and 10 numbers of 33 kV Artin reactors for the transmission company of Nigeria. Now, the impact of these Artin transformers and reactor is actually to enhance the optimum performance of the national grid, as we have witnessed incessant collapse and disturbance on the grid. This will go a long way in strengthening and expanding the grid.
Council also approved the sum of 400 million naira that will be for power generating sets, which will act as backup for solar-powered streetlights in the FCT. From the Presidential Villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
Okay, so yes, indeed, there are a number of issues that will be highlighting this morning here in the studios. We've got His Excellency Ambassador Omar Suleiman, who is the former immediate past Nigeria's ambassador to Congo, former managing director of Nigerian Port Authority, and a member, Board of Trustees of APC Professionals Forum. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well, We see that the government having marathon FEC meetings. I think it's going to be ahead of this week. What is it this weekend? 31st, 29,
Yes.
whichever one. But one key thing that stands out is people are waiting to see the impact of these policies. But I know you've also, you feel the pulse of the people out there in terms of how things are turning out. What feedback do you get yourself from all of these government policies?
Yeah, the government policies are there to see that the general public are comfortable and being helped with the situation that's happening. But you have been in Nigeria and the government Nigeria for very long. Believe me that 1 year alone is not enough for this, to see the fact that the government has already done. A lot of things have been done already, and you can see even the fact approvals, infrastructure that's coming. And that's the pain of our economy. We need this infrastructure to move forward. You cannot develop the economy will not move forward unless you concentrate on key infrastructures, power, infrastructure for the economy, the port. So as Bola Tinubu is, our president Bola Tinubu is doing very well to see that he built up infrastructure for the Nigerians, and infrastructure is always a long-term project. It's not a project that you just see the impact immediately. But with little patience, Nigerians will see the effect of what is happening now.
How much patience will that lead to me?
I think for us to see the real benefit of what is coming, I think we need to wait about 2 more years.
2 more years? Yes, that'll be 3 years.
Yes, that'll be 3 years.
But Your Excellency, you know that businesses, many businesses, given the nature of how they survive in this country, will not last up to 3 years if all doesn't go well.
As I've been in, I've been in a high level of government for very long. And I think this is bad, but this is not the worst.
Okay. So let's look at, first, when you say 1 year is not enough, ASU had a meeting yesterday.
Yes.
And then now they are threatening, they're giving government 2 weeks to reconstitute negotiation committee. Negotiation committee. It doesn't have to take government 1 year to do that. Because what they're saying now is that ever since last year, when ASU had that back and forth with the former government, this government hasn't even had a meeting. They've not followed up with some of these demands. Several boards are running illegally. They are approving universities, things are going on, but they haven't called ASU to a table to see, look, how do we proceed? So many were surprised yesterday, asking, wait a minute, you mean government hasn't even met with ASU ever since then? How can that be?
The issue of ASU and the government is a very long, lingering issue. And for me, as BOT and APC professional forum, we are there to see that professionals are involved in situation, and that's why we are bringing in this scorecard we are running on the 21st. And we are bringing in everybody from all sectors, especially now the first phase is like power and economy. The minister the power is coming, the minister of finance is coming to discuss such issues. The issue of ASU, they have not met them, is both sides of the coin, because I'm not sure that ASU stressed for a meeting with the federal government and did not get. And vice versa, the government did not stress also.
Yeah, but ASU, what they say is that when a new government comes in, ASU will just wait, give you time. Let's see how the government will approach all of these things. Will the government reach out? How will they approach all of these issues? That's why they haven't been making noise, because they want to see how give them time to settle, so people don't think that ASU is being high-handed. But ASU, that hasn't happened.
But if I can remember when this government came in, there was little earlier dialogue with ASU. I think that was why they were able to go back to work and it calmed down. I'm telling you, it should be both sides of the coin. It's not just the government.
But if ASU had to call this meeting and give every 2 weeks to reconstitute council and meet some of these demands, what does it take for government to reconstitute a council? Because they're showing signs of former governments in the way they handle this kind of issues. You say this is not the worst. But with these signs that we're seeing now, what's the difference?
Now, there's a lot of difference. There's a lot of...
In the way they're handling this ASU matter, for instance.
Let's not be...
No, we'll look at other policies.
Yes, let's not have a hollow effect of just policy of ASU. Let's look at the bigger picture and the other things that are going on around the country.
And ignore ASU?
Well, I'm not saying we should ignore ASU. ASU is very, very important. But let's not do hollow effect. Let's expand and see the other sectors. The ASU issue, they have given alternative. I'm sure the Minister of Education, I think that's where ASU is happening. We'll meet with them and find a solution, and if your constitution should be done. That shouldn't be, the government shouldn't be judged on ASU meeting or not meeting.
No, government will be judged on policies that affect each sector.
Exactly, but not professional. But not one policy.
Yeah, but if you're in health, you'll look at health. And if government has not impacted you positively, you will judge them on that policy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The minister will look into that since they have given ultimatum. I'm sure the minister will immediately look into that.
Okay, because it doesn't take 1 year to do this. That's on the one hand. And then, which policy? Because I'm looking at several issues, and look and say whichever one I pick now, there'll be question marks.
No, pick anyone.
In terms of government. So you're saying you're going to be discussing some of those policies with the professionals forum.
Yes.
So in terms of how the government has handled the economy,
yes,
the cost of living for a lot of people is over the roof. You say you've seen governments, and this is not the worst. What is worse than now in terms of the price of petrol, the living wage, the purchasing power? What is worse than now? Have we had it this worse? The exchange rate, has it been worse than this?
Yeah, it hasn't directly been worse of this, but believe me, you know, if your country, the way we are running the country before in terms of exchange rate, we are on the cliff. We are on the cliff. And this what has happened, it's just the apex and we are broken down. The subsidy, you know, that subsidy was the major problem that brought in this. And by the time we removed the subsidy, but there's something positive about this government. This is the only government that dollar has raised to a certain level and came down.
But
there has never been.
As we speak,
yes,
it's over between 1,400 and 1,500 now.
Yeah, I'm saying that.
That's the highest in the history.
Yeah, but it reached 2,000, and it came down. And since I graduated in 1983 and 86, the dollar has been going on, even if it's fake, going or legitimate going, it has never gone up by cent and came down. And that's telling you the government is doing all it can to see that the citizens of Nigeria will not suffer. You know, in every government, there are saboteurs, especially in the economy.
Are there saboteurs in this economy, in this government, at this point in time?
Of course, at this point.
What area are they sabotaging?
You have seen yourself, people arrested, who have been arrested on issues of currency. So what are they doing?
The court hasn't proven anything, so they're innocent until proven guilty. Right?
Yeah, okay, I agree, but that's what happens. There are people out there sabotage the economy, even if they are not arrested or they are not tried and found guilty. And the government is doing all it can to see that they address such issues.
Is there subsidy at the moment for petrol? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you're asking first.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a good question, but I don't have an answer for it. I cannot answer the question right now. I will need to consult if I need to answer the question from Minister of Petroleum, but now I cannot tell.
Isn't that a concern? Because if they were doing what they can, the policy will be very clear. to the Professionals Forum, for instance. They even know, because you know that business people plan based on some of these policies. So if those policies were really clear, by now everybody will know it. But if we're not sure of what it is or confused, how do you progress in that scenario?
Our interaction as a peace professional body is we are not in the government, we are not on the seat of the government of day-and-day operations of the government. We meet from time to time. We invite the MDS, the professor, to discuss from time to time. So we are not in the privy to know exactly the policy that has taken place today, until maybe when we meet in a month or 2 times before now, pick the policy, look at it, discuss with our own professionals before now. If there's anything to advise the government on it, then we do. But we are no policy. We are not running the government. So there are certain things that just after it's done, after a certain time, then we look at it.
Ambassador, the point I'm trying to make is, you don't have to be in government or working with government to understand the policy, or it to be clear to you, because as a professional and as an investor, government is shopping for investors. They want investors to come in.
Yes.
So if investors cannot see from a distance, okay, policies are clear here, they're clear here, okay, I think we can plan based on this. That's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge. The clarity policy will tell something. I'm telling you, it takes time, because even the investors, if the investors say we are trying to bring in investors, the policy that they are telling me they are saying, it's not the policy maybe that has been discussed in the boardroom of the policy. It's sometimes they see sometimes there's no policy that doesn't come with some negative effects, whatever it is. And usually negative policy get exaggerated. And when such things come, they're being looked into it. But all the government is doing, and I think we have not, as far as I'm concerned, we have not seen a government that's working so hard to bring investors to this country like this particular government of President Bola Tinubu.
You this one. Part of the issues that you've raised with my colleague Chamberlain, first thing that came to my mind when you started talking to him is to ask you how you think Nigerians in diaspora perceive the initiatives of government. I mean, Chamberlain asked you the other time and you responded that 1 year is too little and that the president needs at least 3 years to be able to make some significant impact. From our experience, the first 2 years is perhaps the only period for governance. The third year, politicking has started. And I don't see how any Nigerian would expect that any government would be more interested in anything significantly. We're preparing for the election year, and then by the 4th year, we're preparing for the election itself. So how do you think Nigerians in diaspora perceive what's going on right now and can even trust that this government will make any significant impact?
That is why, as I agree with what you are saying, the Nigerian diaspora are also watching. And I've also been in the diaspora with Nigerian diaspora that we are discussing issues like what we are discussing, what we are talking about every day. They are watching the policy of the government. And believe me, they are also seeing that the government is trying its best to see that investors are coming into Nigeria to invest, especially the diaspora themselves. And believe me, a lot of the people in the diaspora now, with what we are saying is happening, have increased their investment into the country. And a lot of them are even coming back to see that they establish businesses and make positive impact to the Nigerian economy.
It would seem, Ambassador, that generally government is not as sensitive to what Nigerians are going through. When ministers talk, or when any representative of government talks, or any individual that has any sympathy for the ruling party, particularly at the federal level, no one ever says anything, is really going on except the opposition parties. The opposition parties are always on the extreme, like nothing is going right, and the people who have sympathies for the government and the government itself is always say, oh, everything is going smooth. We're looking for the truth here, Ambassador. We're looking for someone to tell us, well, things are not going the way they ought to go. However, this and this and this are the things that need to be done or are being done. We're looking for communication, Ambassador. We're looking for government to come out and tell Nigerians the real truth. We're looking for information that Nigerians can trust. Things seem to go on a regular and on a continuum, such that people don't even know how to connect the dots anymore. Chamberlain talked about the purchasing power of the Nigerian. We've talked about power supply, electricity tariff. We've talked about fuel scarcity and increase in fuel prices. We've talked about countless other things, inflation figures and all. It would seem like no one is really telling Nigerians what is going on and what to expect. Oh, things are going to get worse before they get better. All of that is narrative. We're looking for something to hold on to trust. What would you advise Nigerians to do, or the government in particular, to do to enforce or ensure confidence so that people can trust them?
Thank you very much. I like the angle you took this question to, but believe me, the issue of inflation, the issue of the prices of goods is not particular to Nigeria. Check your data all over the world. I just came back from London, and I'm telling you, price of things that are maybe £1 have gone to £1.25, even £1.50. And even the price of energy has highly, highly gone up. So, and America is the same thing. It's the issue of increase of purchasing power of citizens of the world has changed tremendously. It's not only Nigeria. Something has happened globally, and it's not only Nigeria. It's just that as a African country, a third world country, we assume it's only us. And actually, it's because maybe we don't communicate very well before some things happen. But actually, this thing is global, and especially me that has been in other African countries. It's just that we look across and just think that it's only your own that is bad. But believe me, in terms of pricing, in terms of governance, in terms of Nigeria is doing a lot. And President Bola Tinubu is doing quite a lot. It's
I
just
apologize
that
for
when you
butting
hear
in, Your
it,
Excellency. I apologize for
yes.
butting in, but that's them. This is us. That's London.
Yeah, this is them.
That's the US. Just a second, sir. That's them. This is us. There are those who would also argue, Your Excellency, that in these countries and in these cities or environments that you talk about, they have certain safety nets. The infrastructure are working, the systems are pretty optimal, so that even if the things are going real steep for the people, someone was just sharing, I think it was yesterday, that certain classes of people, particularly in the US, receive paychecks every so often to buffer the environment, the situations that they find themselves in. I don't know if that happens in Nigeria. We hear of the safety nets registry and all of that, which the state governors are still fighting. Whether or not that is even active is another thing altogether. That is them, Your Excellency. This is us. There are those who believe, and that you also know, given the wealth that Nigeria has in its potential capacity, that is just latent. It's not potent, it's not active yet. We shouldn't be in this mess, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. And I think you are talking to Ambassador of Congo, the richest country in the world, who has just left Congo. And believe me, if you check your records, Nigeria is the fourth largest in terms of mineral resources in Africa, not even the first. And we are the largest economy because the first is Congo, next is South Africa, the third is Tanzania, then Nigeria is the fourth. But if you look at the data indices, how much Nigeria has even done, it's just go back and say, you cannot say we is we. It's global. You can't separate yourself from what is happening from your neighbors because it affects you. Just that, as you said, you can't blame President Tinubu in a year because he was not able to set up system that will be giving checks to people. But a lot of things have been set up. Sometimes we have issue implementation down. But as you said, you don't know if the state government is doing it or not. So it's being done, but just that maybe it hasn't reached a lot of people. And there's this high exaggeration of issue of hunger in Nigeria. There's hunger quite over in certain areas. But we, especially we that are privileged with the media, sometimes we also not look at the positive stuff, what is happening in Nigeria. Nigeria is trying very well in terms of feeding because I Where was it recently? Yeah, it was even like I had one simple conversation with a person. I came out, he said, from where are you? She said, I told him, I'm from Nigeria. He said, Nigeria is security issues in Nigeria. And unfortunately, I was talking to somebody from, I think, Yemen. I told him, where are you from? He said, why are you here? I told him that, and they were collecting stuff to send all these countries. I said, have you ever had them collecting food to send to Nigeria? He said, no. I said, okay, as far as we hear about Nigeria, there are certain aspects of Nigeria that we have not reached why the other countries are reached. At least in Nigeria, within ourselves, even if it's from neighbor to neighbor or the government to everything, we can feed ourselves, which other countries cannot have. And believe me, I have been around, especially the Central African countries, that in terms of governance or trying to help them, we as Nigeria and people we are doing much. It's just that it's normal. People will not see we are doing it as much as is expected. But let's give President Tinubu some time, because a lot of policies that we are looking at that we will discuss with people, and that's why we are doing this forum on the 21st. We are calling all the key stakeholders. We will discuss, formulate everything, and from time to time, we now discuss with them, send to the government if, what we feel to be done. And that's our job, because in the AP's professional forum, all professionals are there. Every profession you can think of are there at high level. People that were governors, people that were deputy governors, people that, like me, who are chief executive of big institutions, we are there, and we have seen it all. So that's what we are doing.
Ambassador, the president himself did tell us, I asked for this job. I sought for this job. I wanted this job. Don't pity me. So when people hear you say, give him 2 more years, some will wonder. But the man himself, not sure he requires all of those time, because he himself has said, from when they listen to him, he's expected to hit the ground running. And so if people don't see those kinds of results, they will ask questions. For instance, we were told in this country that PH refinery will come on stream. What was it last year?
Yes.
As we speak, nothing's going. It hasn't come on stream as it promised. They've given us several dates of when the Port Harcourt refinery was going to be on stream. That hasn't happened. When the president came on board, that same day, he spoke about petrol subsidy removal, and that certain thieves, how do you call it? Maybe you use the word sabotage.
Yeah.
Does it take 1 year to arrest and prosecute the so-called subsidy thieves? Because if you're in private sector, you have a probation of 6 months, sometimes.
Yes.
To see if you perform or not.
Yeah, of course.
But this is a year. Do you know anybody that's been tried as subsidy thief?
You said, if I'm professional, this is government.
Are there different standards for a president who said, I sought for this job? Don't pity me.
Yeah. Listen, as a passenger and as a driver, your views are different. He was a passenger. Now he's the driver. Your views are completely different.
Meaning?
What he was expecting immediately to hit, especially, it's just like we in engineering, when you want to go and fix a renovation job. We had renovation job as engineers, especially civil engineers. Because what happens is that you look at this ceiling and say, okay, this ceiling is broken. By the time you break the ceiling, you find that the rafter is already broken. So this is the type of situation he finds himself. No, by the time he's on the seat, what he saw there actually is not exactly what he was expecting. So it was worse than
what he expected.
What he was expected. You need time, and you need real commitment and committed people to be able to fix that. And that's what he's doing now.
But isn't it is different? Some will say it's different because he campaigned for the job. He has said it himself. We campaigned, we promised you. So we have to do what we have said we will do. Unless you want to tell us they were lying to us when they were promising us all those things.
I'm not saying, no, it's not a lie. I've just told you what happened. So it's not a lie.
It's the same party. It's not opposition party. They had opportunities to go and see. They had meetings with the outgoing government, the documents, what happened before, this is where we are, you can take off from here. All of those things were done. So what's the excuse to wait for?
What did you say?
You said 2 more years.
You said all those things were done.
Didn't they hand over? They didn't hand over. There was no handover note?
There was handover note.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So if you saw the handover note, you've read it with your team, you have eggers in the industry, you have eggers in your cabinet, why should we wait for 2 more years?
What of handover note that doesn't contain certain things? What do you do?
It's a phone call away from the former president.
From
all the other ministers are all in this country, most of them.
The former president, as I'm telling you, also relying on ministers and his deputies. And so, what of a situation that they too, the president does not have the first-hand information of what are taking place?
Are you telling? Is that the case right now?
I'm not telling you it's not the case. I'm telling.
So that's hypothesis. So we can't go.
We can't just put.
So we can't rely on hypothesis. Let's rely on practicals. What is going on right now? Because you can't go and tell the people out there on the streets who they're whatever they earn cannot even buy anything. We can't tell them to wait for 2 more years. But so that would be very tough. They will think we're being insensitive if you say that to them.
Yeah, already they think we are being insensitive already. But this is the reality. This is the reality of the situation. It will take a little time. Then everything will be okay. I'll be here with the studio and you will smile with me.
Like what, 2 more years, then everything will be okay?
It will be okay in 2 more years.
Let me go back to what I asked you previously.
Yes.
When the president said subsidy was being manipulated, there were people who were stealing.
Yes.
There were frauds in that area. Till today, I didn't ask you, have you seen anybody arrested or being prosecuted right now to justify what they told us there were thieves in that sector? Do you know anyone? Because I don't.
Yeah, the issue with that, let's leave that to judiciary, with the Minister of Justice.
No, it's not to the judiciary. The judiciary will take cases that you bring to them. The president told us that subsidy was a fraud and there was no one to remove it. It wasn't working. People were, they were stealing the money meant for the common people. So now that they removed the subsidy, people expect naturally, so who were those that were guilty of all of those things? Judiciary cannot do anything that don't come before them, but they're not for their Christmas. I'm asking, has anyone been arrested and taken to face the music?
It's not the president that will take them. It's the system that will investigate and take them for prosecution.
Yeah, the buck stops at the stable. He's the one who removed subsidy, not the institution. He's the one who made the announcement.
Yes.
He's the one who said he was prepared. He's the one who said, don't pity me for this one. He's the one who said, I campaigned, I will do it. He's the one who says, ask me, hold me accountable. Why shouldn't we then hold him accountable?
Give him time, they will hold him accountable, I told you.
No, you say give him that. He's not saying give him time.
I told you why.
Ambassador, by May 29.
Yes.
Are you not going to roll out the drums to celebrate? Why not saying wait for 2 more years?
It's not, they're going to roll out May 29 is not a celebration.
What is it?
It's just to take a scorecard. You have spent 1 year in office. And
yeah, but they'll tell you what we've done. They will tell you we've done this, we've achieved. Those words will be dominant because they're expected to get accolades. Yeah. They're expected to be cheered and clapped for.
Yeah.
Can people who are hungry clap for them?
No, people hungry will not clap, definitely. I agree with you, but that is why the AP's professional forum is trying to distill, to meet with them, to distill whatever, to sensitize the common people first of what the realities are.
Is it true that a lot of, because I'm told some of my colleagues say in the North, many people are not happy with this president, this government. Policies are not going right. They're feeling the hinge very, very badly. Is that true?
I can't answer that question.
Why?
Because I don't know why you got it from you. You say some people. Unless you mention specific name, then Suleiman can give a specific answer.
So give me a specific answer. From your sphere of influence up north, are they happy with this government?
So far, so good.
How? What do you mean? They're happy with the government?
They're happy with the government.
You consider authoritative?
I consider authoritative.
My colleague has one more question.
Okay.
Just a quick one, Chamberlain. Well, Your Excellency, I don't know how happy people are or how they are reflecting on the fact that we still have multidimensional figures. If you can still hear me.
I can hear you now.
Okay. So the question I want to ask you straight up is this. How come we do not have the kind of collaboration between the federal government and state governments to instill more trust and foster economic growth in the various states and regions in the country?
I will not agree with that totally. Maybe if you said AP's government does not have collaboration with the other party government, maybe some of PDP government and NPP government, but the APC is a unit, and the president and the APC governors have collaboration, and they are working together.
My sincere apologies. For what we understand, once a government comes in, whether PDP, APC, LP, whatever, they cease being political party leaders. They become leaders of Nigeria. So it's immaterial which party they come from. They lead Nigeria and they lead each state in the country. There should be collaboration between the federal and state governments. Otherwise, we cannot have economic growth. Don't you agree?
Exactly, I agree. They should be. But you said they should be also. But it now depends on the individuals and the individual states and whatever they feel about the center government. And you know, this has happened since the first independence. This has happened even during the second independence when our president Obasanjo was the president. There's issue with other states that was not his party PDP. So this is ongoing on until maybe we evolve to see that a president of Nigeria have to invite all the parties will embrace and work together. But that's why we have some of these issues, and we cannot discount it.
Okay, just before going back, so you said the Minister of Finance and some other officials of government will converge with the APC Professionals Forum to discuss. What would that be about?
Or to discuss what the reality of the achievements and the people there to discuss the progress of APC 1 year in the office. Then we round up together.
They have people who tell them the truth that look, someone.
Yeah. They will be. We invited people that will tell them the truth, and you are invited.
Okay, thank you. We've been speaking with His Excellency Omar Suleiman, ambassador, immediate past ambassador, as a matter of fact, of Nigeria to Congo, a former managing director of Nigeria Port Authority, and a member of the trustees of APC Professionals Forum. Thank you for coming on this.
Thank you very much.
All right, so on top of the hour, we're going to have a business morning on Sunrise Daily, so don't go away.
Good morning. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily here on Channels Television. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We start as usual from the global space. Oil prices rose on Wednesday on expectations for higher demand and, of course, the U.S. dollar weakening. A report showed that U.S. crude and gasoline inventories fell, while the release of inflation data may point to a more supportive economic outlook. That means that inflation numbers may show that pressures are tapering when it comes to prices. Let's look at Brent now. It's up 0.6% at $82.88 a barrel. A lot of movement we've seen beginning the week with 83 down to 82, back to 83, and now is at 82 again. That's for Brent. For WTI of the United States, it's gone from 79 to 78, even though it's an up right here in the last couple of hours, 0.7%. Right up there. We told you about the data, inflation data from the United States. Expectation is driving that. Then the U.S. crude oil inventories was down 3.109 million barrels in the weekend at May 10. That number just came out from the American Petroleum Institute, and that is also a factor driving inflation numbers. Inventory data is also due later on today. And the oil prices also found support from a softer U.S. dollar. So, of course, when the value of dollar goes down, it means more people with without the dollar currency are able to buy more. So that obviously adds to the demand of oil. Well, talking about oil, yesterday, Nigeria's crude oil production recorded an uptick. The meeting from OPEC Plus yesterday, that's for last month, April. Well, we have 1.28 million barrels per day. That's what we did last month. At least it's more than what we had the previous month. It was 1.23 barrels per day in March. That's at the end of that OPEC's latest monthly oil market report that was done yesterday. 51,000 barrels per day increase recorded, brings to a halt the 2 consecutive months of decline in the month. So this should mean more revenue for the country. Also with this increase, Nigeria regains the leading position on the charts for Africa's top oil producers. Angola had overtaken Nigeria. Now it's Nigeria, Angola, and then Libya. Meanwhile, Nigeria's oil rig count remained unchanged at 19 in the month of April. We do know that in the last, I believe, even in this month, we've added to our production, expecting, I think, about 16,000. By the end of the month, we should have about 40,000 from that OML in Akwa Ibom State. So we'll see if this is captured at the end of this month. Now we look at the Naira, not a good picture. We've seen the Naira continuously, depreciation is going on. And this is in spite of those arrests. We've seen EFCC is working with SEC, EFCC is arresting speculators. And I mean, economists will ask, is that the source of Nigeria's Naira depreciation? Is it arresting of these people? When we look around us, even in African countries, what's the scenario? And then from the Western countries also, do we see where EFCC is arresting people like this? I don't know. Well, mine is to talk and ask the questions. That's all I can do. Yes, I don't have the answers. But I mean, it's not a good picture for the Naira. We were celebrating the appreciation, but obviously that was a blip because we are back to the negative side now for about 3 weeks, I think, consecutive, maybe just one. Yesterday we had a positive from NAFEX, kind of artificial though. So we see NAFEM, the Naira dropped to 1,520 Naira 40 kobo from 1,478 Naira at the close of the previous day. NAFEX is 1,472 Naira 84 kobo from 1,449 Naira 80 kobo. Something really has to be done about this. We thought we were, having a little bit of relief, but we're not having it, and it's not a good one for the country at this time. Well, let's just do the numbers at once. Look at the financial market this morning and see how it closed yesterday. It wasn't also a very good one for the NGX at the close of trade yesterday. It was a red 0.24%, but at least we know, we see a corresponding action to this. We see it in the fixed income market. So it's safe to say that perhaps the fund is still around the Nigerian financial market. If it's not at the stock exchange or the stock market, it's in the money market. We've seen numbers come out that the federal government has made about 11 trillion naira in the first 4 months from bonds and treasury bonds and FGN saving bonds and all of that. So perhaps this is explainable, unlike the Naira, even though it's explainable, but are we doing anything about it? But the NGX was in the red yesterday, 0.24% at 97,473.98. Equities cap lost even the 200 here we had. It was 55.2 this time yesterday, but at the close of trade, it was 55.1 trillion naira for the NGX. Activity chart was all in the red. Top trades were Accessco, GTco, Nigerian breweries. Obviously, a lot of profit taking still going on there. Investors seem to be, taking from here to the fixed income market. When we go to even the smaller listed market, that's the NESD, it was also a negative, almost 0.5% down, 0.46%. There we have it. Market cap there, 1.653 trillion naira, and NSE is 1,206. Activity chart there was mostly red, even though it was mixed. Just the value was up about 15%. But you had the volume down and stocks traded also dropped by more than 57% at the close of trade. That's the unlisted market. So for the big guys in the NGX and those who feel they kind of meet up with that, we see them here. And even here we can see that investors are not smiling there a whole lot. Now let's go to where investors are at this time. They're in the fixed income market, yes. Starting with federal government bonds, yesterday we had 32 deals valued at 27.93 trillion naira, and we see a lot of movements right there. I think yields are still looking good. The saving bonds still did very well, and it will cost the government less to fund the budget if they are going this way. So that's why we celebrated 12 deals for the February 2031 auction security right there. Go to the next one, Treasury bills. We have 37 deals valued at 88.92 billion naira. And this is the secondary market. And I think we have an auction today or so. Anita will have more details 1 p.m. April 2025, there were 19 deals for the NTB. This is where the FDIs, mostly prefer because of the short term and the promising yields. So April 10, 2025 had a lot, and we can see the busiest of the securities there at 2025. A lot more activity going on around there. For OMO of the central bank, there were 19 deals valued at 40 billion naira, and these ones are even shorter. They mature in June 2024, August 2024, and this were the busiest of that. So the short-term securities are being favored at this time. Top on the list is August 2024, and that's it. Well, I believe we should have Afolabi Gbenro now. He's of the NGX, of the stock market, to tell us perhaps what has been happening and what to expect at the close of trade. Good morning, Afolabi.
Okay. Good morning, Nini. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so
I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it's been an interesting time in the markets. We've seen a reversal in the bearish trend that we had seen on the back of the recapitalization news. The banks have definitely been driving activities in the markets, and we expect this to continue. But what we have started to see is that the banks have started to reverse. They've started to see some gains, especially in the major banks, the likes of GTCO, Zenith. It's safe to say that some of the dividends that have been paid are being reinvested back into the market. At least that's what we've been seeing. So we expect that the banks will continue to drive activities in the markets, and we expect activities to be largely driven by the banking sector today.
Yeah, but even the banking sector doesn't seem strong enough to, we've even lost our 98,000. So even the investors' appreciation of the banking stocks doesn't seem to be pulling a lot of weight at this time.
Yes, but I think it's also safe to say that at least we're seeing some decent volumes trading with banks. I think GT traded over about 30 million shares yesterday. Zenith as well also traded some decent volumes. Access Bank, UBA, we're seeing some very decent volumes trade in these names. So even though it's not as bullish as maybe what we would like to have seen, we are actually seeing investors actually taking interest in these stocks.
Do we see this market recovering anytime soon?
We would like to see it recover, but I think, like I said, the current catalyst that we're expecting is dividends that have been paid, and these dividends will likely be invested back into the market. I think that's the major catalyst that we're expecting to see right now. I think it's also interesting to see that some foreign investors are also participating in the markets again. So I think it will probably be a slow and steady recovery for the markets, given the way it's dropped over the past couple of weeks.
So it's interesting, the movement in the oil and gas. It doesn't seem connected to our realities, and sometimes one just wonders. So we see the queues, and in other countries, when there's something going on in an industry or a sector, it reflects in the markets. Now, in our case, we don't seem to see a lot of connection. There's still pockets of queues and filling stations. We see the movement of crude oil. And then we also saw the news that our production improved last month, at least to more than 1.2. But we don't see this sentiment captured in the markets.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting that some of the oil and gas stocks, if you look at SEPA, for example, it's not as liquid as maybe like an Oando or something. And I think was it just this week that we saw SEPA drop about 10% in price during trading. it's not very liquid. So that's probably why we're not seeing that translation into the oil and gas sector. I think if it was a little bit more liquid, then we'll probably see those translations as you have described.
All right. So, but I mean, it's not totally, I mean, talking about the NGX generally or the stock market generally, it's not totally negative since we see that it seems investors are moving to the fixed income market. We can't wait if we know that the fund is still going around within us.
Yes, that's correct. And I mean, it's also not surprising that investors are moving away from equities into fixed income. If you're looking at the yields and the returns that you're getting from fixed income instruments and treasury bills and stuff, it's obviously equities are more risky instruments, and the treasury bills are sort of like safer instruments for investors to consider. But despite that, we are actually still seeing investors still interested in the equity markets, and I think we'll probably continue to see that.
So we're talking about investors' confidence in the country generally. I know that even when this administration was campaigning, it seemed to be very bright, and then when they got into office, but about 1 year after, would you say investors' sentiment generally, apart from the stock market, is still bullish?
Yeah, I think a lot of measures have gone into place to get the economy back on track. I think we just need to give these measures time for us to see the real impacts of them. I think what has been done has definitely is taking us a step in the right direction. I think we just need to give it some time for us to see the true impacts of how everything would work out. I think there is still confidence in the stock market. I think there's still confidence in Nigeria. Like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, we are still seeing some foreign investors having interest in the Nigerian markets, and I think that's always a good sign for us as a country.
And this drop in the value of Naira is not deterring investors?
No, I think it's something that they considered, but no, it's not deterring them.
So for you now, if you were to describe in a couple of words 1 year, the last 1 year of the market, what would you say?
Interesting. We've seen the highs, we've seen the lows. Just before the news of the recapitalization came out, we were seeing the market rally. Indeed, the market actually started off rallying. A number of investors actually thought that they had missed the boat. But now we saw prices come back to levels again where investors were like, okay, they could actually take interest, they could participate again. And we're seeing investors basically take positions again in anticipation of another rally. So I'd say that last year has been interesting for the market, and we'll probably continue to see these ups and downs as is expected in equity market investments.
Inflation numbers are expected today. Do you see that making any difference to the markets?
No, I think where we are in terms of inflation, this has already been priced into the market. I think what is affecting the market now is mostly the news of the recapitalization. We're waiting to see the plans that the banks will have in terms of recapitalization. I think that will probably have a significant effect and significant impact rather on the market and the direction of the market.
But the recapitalization, we still have about 2 years. I think there's still time before we start seeing investors really make moves connected to that.
I would disagree with that because once the news came out, that's when we started seeing a reversal especially in the banks. So if you look at the performance of the banking sector from when the recapitalization news was announced, you see that the banks started losing. A lot of investors were selling off. Obviously, because the expectation is that if a bank is coming to the market to raise money, they'll probably want to do it at a discount. So a lot of investors will probably taking profits at higher levels and then coming down to basically come back in again when the market drops. So yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, but wouldn't it look like this is a good time for investors to come on since prices are dropping, and then we expect it to pick up again at the climax of the recapitalization, obviously, when we would have heard of the mergers and all of that, and known which of the banks will make it or which one will get merged.
Yeah, I think a lot of investors have actually been taking advantage of the depressed prices. Activity levels have reduced somewhat especially in the last week or so. But I think a lot of investors have taken advantage of the depressed levels to take positions in some of these stocks.
All right, Afolabi, thank you so much for your time. But how do you see the market closing today, NGX?
It's been very quiet. I think we'll probably continue to see that quiet trend today. I don't expect a significant move in the market today for the rest of today's session.
Yeah, well, I hope we don't lose the 97,000 at the close of trade. Thank you so much, Afolabi Gbinro with Stanbic IBTC Stockbrokers.
Thank you, Ini. Have a good day.
You too. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, just a bit of news left for you, and before we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. Taiwan Business Forum in Nigeria has its eyes on improving on the $500 million volume of trade recorded in 2023. A volume that places Nigeria in second position among Taiwan's African trading partners.
What you have seen all around you are representing Taiwan's industrial power based on our good education, our good investment into promoting our own brain power. So Taiwan and Nigeria is a mutually complementary partners. We always said that because we, the people in Taiwan, we do only legitimate, fair, and free trade. We do not come to your backyard, dig your gold. We do not do illegal mining and stealing your solid minerals. We provide good equipment. We sell you with good facility and know-how. You buy the product, you buy the facility, and you produce your own product. We will buy from you with fair market price. This is what we call a legitimate trading.
Many lessons which Nigeria can learn from Taiwan abound, and participants, including the Director General of NASIMA, has this on his mind.
Around 1960, together with these Far Eastern countries, we were about the same thing economically. But you know, focus is a big thing. Leadership is a very big thing when it comes to running national economies. You don't run national economies as if you are running a shop. It's different. And we've got to develop to a point where we've got to have our long-term goals set, that people, whoever comes to power, can still see that goal and key into it.
Apart from the lessons to be learned from the survival of Taiwan economy in the face of natural disasters, Nigeria seeks to acquire skills in technology, which has made Taiwan a major exporter of machinery to the United States, Nigeria, and other countries. Well, more countries trying to build up a trade relation with Nigeria. Well, I do hope that it will not be a one-sided thing. I know that Nigeria does a lot of imports of machinery from there. And what do we export to Taiwan? Crude oil, mostly. We have to up our game in Nigeria, but let's find out. Sunrise Daily Studio is back to you guys.
Yes, indeed. We're moving on, and Lala Conde joins us now. He's a former presidential aide. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So, over the week, quite a number of things have happened. Let me start with this part, where the president announced the suspension of that 0.5% cybersecurity levy.
Yeah.
Because at the time it came through, there were those, of course, many were not happy with it. Nobody wants to just keep getting taxed over and over again. Because last year, the MAN, manufacturers also did raise the issue about surprise increase in excise duty. And then they talk about multiple taxation, of which the president himself has said several policies about tax while he was campaigning.
Right.
So what was your overall impression of how they came up with this and then eventual suspension?
Yeah. So it would seem that if you look at some of the instances that we've had in the last several months, so they go and do something that is not properly thought out, and then there is a lot of noise, and then the president comes and say, you can't do that. So it would seem to me that do we have a situation where the president has put people in place who don't really know what they are doing? Or is it a problem of poor coordination? Because you have to give it to the president that when this noise rises to the top, he does the right thing. If you look at the cybersecurity levy very well, in the law, it doesn't say that every Nigerian will be levied. But then you have, this circular go out that suggested that everybody will be levied, causing all kinds of needless noise. So it's a very big relief when we heard from the Minister of Information yesterday confirming what we had known before, that it has been stopped. It was a big relief. But the president needs to pay attention to the issues of coordination. Such information shouldn't go out in the first instance until all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. It is giving the administration a bad name. It's not necessary to cause people's blood pressure, as it were, to rise, and then we calm it down. There are better ways to manage these things, and this is what one is hoping that the president will be alive to.
So the president on that particular table, he has tons of things to attend to.
You can imagine.
So for this kind of matter, you wonder, is he the one supposed to be looking into this matter as well when he has several ministries, agencies, several? In fact, he's the Minister of Finance and coordinating.
Yeah.
And then you also have this committee that they also have set up at different levels.
Yeah.
To make sure they coordinate policies.
Yeah.
So that we don't have these kind of scenario. Yet, we still have this.
Now, so it's one of the points that we have made before. So you do have now some kind of economic management team, that is being led by the coordinating minister for the economy. So you will expect that this kind of decision, the imposition of the cybersecurity levy would have been discussed, behind the scene. Now, I don't know whether it was or not, but one thing that I have noticed and that I would like to say again is that you cannot have a minister supervising other ministers, even though you call the minister coordinating economy. You have a vice president whose job it is to help the president do this stuff. They need to engage the vice president a lot more to coordinate these issues. This was the experience that I had working in Haiti. For whatever it is that happened, you had, especially in the first time, you had a vice president who had the authority of the president to coordinate things. And the difference was clear between what happened in the first time and the second time, and the difference is clear in what is happening now. All of these points, having the cybersecurity levy, everybody has to pay it. Then government comes and says, no, we have to review it. What happened to the decision-making process in the first instance before it went out? I suspect that one of the things, there might be a lot of other things, is that there is not an effective coordination of the people that are involved in the economy. I think, Mr. President, you need to get your vice president working. He can have the convening authority that ministers don't have.
So here's the thing. We know that during former President Goodluck Jonathan's time, we had the coordinating minister of the economy.
Yeah.
CME, Dr. Konjo. You had the vice president as well.
Yeah.
So she was on a job at that point in time. So they seem to have managed it.
Right.
But while you served, the VP was in charge of the economy.
Yes.
At the time. So they
were first time.
Yeah, so for the first time. So things were done differently at that point in time.
Right.
Now, at this time, we've seen that the VP is doing more. Out a lot more.
Yeah.
Could that have been factored in? And then they said, look, if we need to do stuff, let's expand this to see how we can get a lot more results.
Right.
And now we're having this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a possible scenario. And the question is that you have to be able to pinpoint, where do you need the VP playing a role that will deliver optimal results? Where is there there's a problem in this administration, clearly, of coordination. And we have seen it from day one. Too many reversals, too many snaffles that are completely needless. It just points to poor coordination. I mean, it's not rocket science at all. And that's why I felt that, look, one of the things that can be done is to use, the people that we have some kind of convening authority to help the president. Because, look, I want to give it to the president. Many times when these things happen, it comes to him, he says, no, you can't do that, stop that. They reverse it. But the president shouldn't just be engaged at the level of reversal. There has to be a much more properly deployed processes whereby things are done, they check everything before they announce it.
For this kind of policy, would they have announced it without checking with the president?
Well, so if you look at the act, there are even quite a number of controversial things. So when they announced it, they said the money was to be going to the NSA. Mm-hmm. Now the NSA is not doesn't have the power to expend federation resources. Because the cybersecurity level will seem to be something that should go to the CRF. So there was an issue there. So the question is that, who were the people that thought this? Was this properly considered? Was there a comprehensive review of these things? Clearly, there wasn't a comprehensive review of what it is. And we know that, yes, there are important cybersecurity. I mean, cybersecurity is a very important thing to be done. No doubt about that. It has to be funded, but to give the impression that, you have to levy every Nigerian at a time when the administration has said that, look, we're even trying to cut down on taxation. And you have the Oyele panel, getting into not just prescription mode, they're also getting into implementation mode to say we're going to be cutting down a lot of the double taxation. Now, at the same time, you are doing that. It just tells you that there is so much lack of coordination. And I'm hoping, many Nigerians are hoping that the president can sort this as he enters the first year of his administration.
Well, Mr. Konde, let's talk about an area of common interest, communication. I mean, you grew to be associate professor somewhere out of this country long enough to even be leading in impacting knowledge on communication. And you talked about the snafu. And one of the issues that we know is that more than half of a problem, particularly when it involves a number of people, and in quite a number of cases, the size of the federal government of Nigeria, more than 1,500 ministries, departments, agencies, and corporations of government, is a problem of communication. You talked about the problem of coordination, which one would say is also because there is a lack of coordination, lack of communication. Lack of communication is responsible for coordination. You have led the media and communication team of the vice president before, in the vice president's office before. Consequently, you've led a media and communication team in the presidency. What is responsible for such poor coordination? What could be responsible for such poor coordination so people can understand exactly where you're coming from?
Yeah, thank you, Hayo. And that's a very important point that you're making, that poor communication is also reflected in the poor coordination. Very important point. Now, one of the things that I've noticed in the federal government administration and generally in public administration in this country is that we don't take issues of communication very seriously. Even internal communication, communication within the government is poorly done. Not to talk of external communication between government and the people. Now, so a lot of decisions are taken by the relevant and the appropriate agencies of government. Yes, they have the powers to take some of these decisions, but because of the impact that those decisions have, there is a need to have some kind of central point where the announcements are made so that people can be properly carried along. Now, quite frankly, and this is not a problem of just this administration, this is the problem of public administration in Nigeria generally that I have noticed. We don't have an effective system of communication at all. At all. We don't have it at all. It's as if the people that are supposed to be doing communication, it's as if they are asking for a favor when they want to know what is going on and when they want to assert themselves. For the most part, people just think that, oh, well, we have the responsibility to do this and we're going to go ahead and announce, not considering the overall impact that it will have first on the administration and then the kind of reception that this might create with the people, affecting question of trust and distrust and mistrust between government and the people. So to answer your question in a summary form, there is a big problem in Nigeria's public administration. We don't regard communication the way we ought to. And that is one of the things that I came out of government observing that, dude, this has to change. And we even tried, as much as possible to change it, but it is a very fundamental problem. If the president or in the state, the governor is not determined to sort it out, it will just be, up today, down tomorrow.
All right, so I want to let our viewers on DSTV know that we're going live now to the Nasarawa Investment Summit, which is going on. But you can flip on the other platforms and we'll continue this all-important conversation about ensuring that policies are done right. So that was one. And as you said, not that we are complaining about the fact that they respond to policies that people feel they don't like. It's a good side. It shows that, well, okay, somebody's listening. But then this brings us to performance of some of these ministers. Right. In terms of, for instance, we know that ASU only held a meeting yesterday saying, look, nothing is going on. Government hasn't called them to reconstitute that committee 1 year on. And of course, the Minister of Education will have questions to answer. They had fake meetings, marathon fake meetings. So you'd have thought that these kind of issues are what should come up when you have those kind of fake meetings. Or is it that what? They screen those issues and say, no, this one cannot come up. How does it happen?
Well, normally, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation is the one that sets the agenda for the Federal Executive Council meeting. Of course, the Federal Executive Council is the president's court. He runs the show the way that he chooses to. But it's the Secretary to the Government of the Federation that sets the agenda. Now, oftentimes, the agendas that come in are the ones that the memos that ministers bring to the council. So when ministers have a memo, something to propose, they send it to the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. He compiles it. Decisions are taken whether this should be considered today or not, how many memos we want to deal with now. And there are times when memos are also stepped down because maybe it's not right. There are questions that have to be answered so that there can be an overall a better perception and a better discussion. But there is also in the agenda of Fed, AOB, any other business. And that is where current issues that are boiling in the polity can be brought forward.
It doesn't have to be listed.
It doesn't have to be listed. It has to be brought forward by any of the members of the Federal Executive Council. So any minister can actually, at the point of AOB, raise the issue and say that this is something that is important. So that is where, for instance, if the Minister of Education or any of the ministers feel that, look, this ASU thing is coming up again, before it becomes a problem, what should we do? And quite frankly, there are times when you have very frank exchange of ideas. So, I wouldn't know why, for 1 year, as ASU has alleged, that they've not had this kind of engagement with the federal government, but I mean, from the experience of what we know, it's often the case that people don't respond properly until somebody is banging the table. I think that's just a cultural problem that we have to deal with as a people.
So I know that during the former president's time, he did complain that he's doing a lot, but his issues were not going out there.
Yeah.
So what could have happened at that point?
Well, a lot of issues could have happened. Like I said, I don't think that the public policy administration in Nigeria, I don't think it is properly arranged to communicate effectively. It's very poor. It's very poor. You know, you see a lot of people who are in charge of communication trying to nose around to find out what is happening, and you know, it seems as if people are doing them a favor. You know, that has to change. That has to change because
let's expand that a little bit, because what we've seen, and you could point it out too, if it's not the way it is, it comes across as though a lot of politicians, when they have their media or communication people come on board, they just have them as though they're just hangers on. We don't see a deliberate plan. I mean, in some other climes, when you go for instance, the Democratic conventions, several other scenarios, meetings, you will see where they are deliberate about this is how the media, this is what media's role here. We're reaching this to the media. There's a platform set up for media people when you're setting up so that you can get short and not cover. You could see people are thinking about the public who are represented by the media. But in this case, we don't see those kind of things.
We don't see it, you know, and you know, you wonder what the problem is. And my experience has been that, you know, when you even try to get people to understand that, they think that you're asking for a favor. Is the part that I don't really understand. Look, we are practicing a democratic system of government. So you are responsible to the people. The people must know. I remember there was a time, even at FEC, when some ministers said, look, I mean, after FEC, every Wednesday we go out and address the media. You know, that must we do that? You know, we have to always, he said, do we have to always, give information to the press? And it was the vice president that was presiding. The vice president told them, President said, put it point blank, that we must always have a press briefing. So some ministers were saying that I mean, we always have to go out, and so that is just an indication.
No wonder many of them were never always
people
responding.
don't understand that. Look, this thing is going to have an impact on the president who hired you, and that's why I said that. Look, it will take the president in the country and governors in the states to change the format of public communication, especially in governments in Nigeria. And it's something that we have to do. Otherwise, you're going to have that gap between the people and the government widening.
Mr. Konde, I'm enjoying the conversation you're having with Chamberlain. And one of the things that the issues raised here thus far is that of believability. I mean, one of the things, it just reminds me of a strategy that I observed or perceived from the Babangida government of the 90s. They put out a policy just to see how people will react. And then when the reaction is not too bad or it's balanced, they keep it. If the reaction is too caustic, they withdraw it. Do you think that this government could also be flying a kite with some of these initiatives, some of which they put out, then they reverse or they reduce and all of that? Do you think that is something, it could be a strategy that this government is using one way or the other?
Yeah, well, you know, I wouldn't think so. You know, because if you look, for instance, at the cybersecurity levy, which we started talking about this morning, it was the Central Bank of Nigeria that put out that information. Now, normally, the Central Bank of Nigeria is an autonomous body. Okay, so you are not supposed to have a situation where the president is openly giving the Central Bank of Nigeria instructions, because by his act, he's supposed to be autonomous. And there are specific instances in the act where the governor and the Central Bank management must get the president's approval. For instance, when they wanted to change the naira and all of that. So I don't think that in this particular instance, they were trying to, check out what it is, tease out the information. I think it was just a problem of coordination.
Which also leads to this issue. Every president, every governor, expectedly, has senior special assistants or some kind of officers that are supposed to relate with these ministries, departments, and agencies, be it autonomous or not. at least we know that there is some agent, some officer of the president that is supposed to be speaking to election matters. In this case, they're talking to the to INEC just to understand what is going on and all of that. So if the president has SAs or SSAs or whichever way you want to call them, dealing with these agencies, should we be having this kind of what some people may refer to as policy somersaults if the SAs are doing their jobs?
Yeah, I mean, very, very good point. What I have found out, Ayo, is that in many instances, even the SAs, even in the presidency, to my surprise, in many instances, they don't even know what is going to happen. So a lot of the times they are trying to catch up because many of these agencies just go and do their thing without considering the impact that it will have on the president. I remember that when we were there, we had to form a presidential communication team, that was then headed by the vice president. We used to have meetings once a week. The vice president, would chair those meetings, and then you had the minister of information, you had the special advisor, the senior special assistants, and other people that their work has to do with media and communication, sit around the table and try to figure out and try to be proactive. We had that for a little while because part of the problem that we noticed was that, look, even the SSAs and the SAs for communication have to be catching up. A lot of the times they hear the news themselves when it is out there. And so we have to put
Doesn't that also question, my apologies, Mr. Akonde, doesn't that also question the collaboration initiatives of the federal government of Nigeria? Collaboration. Should any ministry, department, or agency put out anything without letting the president know he is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, autonomous agency or not? So doesn't that question collaboration?
Yeah. So the way it works, Ayo, is that the president, and I think Chamberlain made that point. There are many things on the president's table, huge, which is why he needs a chief of staff and people, principal private secretary, whatever it is, that we just sit down because the paperwork is humongous. So a lot of things will go to the president, but the media managers, the communication advisors, we have no idea about until it's out. So that is why we talk about coordination. In the instance of the presidency, it has to do with the office of the president. Who is the chief of staff? Who is the principal private secretary? How do they, perceive their job? How should there be some kind of a system where things that have important public implications are shared on an effective system with the special advisors on communication? There are instances where some ministers, once they get an approval from the president, they will go straight to the special advisor and say that, look, I've just gotten this approval, and then the special advisor will say, okay, this is an important thing we have to tell the people. But there are also instances of where people get the approval and they just go on their own.
Okay, so when you say,
frankly,
yeah, my apologies. When you said that the president or the governor at any time have to put their feet down to ensure that this issue of communication happens, natural question. At the risk of the executive, the head of the executive, being authoritarian or asserting too much power, what does he do or how does he go about it?
Well, so in the management of his own aides, there is nothing like authoritarian because he is the one that appointed those aides to help him or her, if he's a female principal. So there is nothing authoritarian about it. The principal, the president or the governor, is the one that was elected, is the one that people will hold responsible. So if he puts his foot down to people that he appointed, that this is how I want the job done, I don't think they have a lot of options not to follow through. I think what we normally have, the problem that normally happens, is that the people who work directly with the principals, at times have issues with the people who do the media and communication. So that, there are all kinds of games that are played. So the onus is still on the principal, who will say, look, This is the level of the importance that I want my media aid to play. When I was the media advisor to former Vice President Oshibaju, there is no meeting I couldn't attend. I could walk into any meeting. I could open his door. I could go to his office at any time. And that helped the way I did the job, as the media aide to the Vice President. But I found out that not everybody has that kind of access, whether working with other principals. And that explains the reason why the communication of government policies at times become very rowdy.
Coming from a state that had a lot of media, you'd have thought they should be able to handle these things better.
Well, even if you look at the current presidency, he has two special advisors, on communication and media, two very important, quite hardworking people. So in terms of the personality, in terms of the personnel, they're there. The question is, how effective are both of them working with the front office of the president? How effective are they working with the ministers? How effective are they working with the secretary to the government of federation? That is what has to happen.
So do we then assume that, okay, maybe they're still learning the ropes.
Right.
Maybe the second, third year, they might be better. Because if the president changes cabinet, they'll be gone and they start again.
Hopefully, I think that they will learn, with the process. But, in the case of the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, he's been there since 2019. So I imagine that he has learned quite a lot. And if he wanted to, he can actually assert himself much more in the process. He came out saying that was what he was going to do. But there's a lot of snafu, that can be fixed. A lot of errors that can be easily fixed, and all of these things have an impact on the image, President.
Okay, so we'll be looking at least to see if in the days, I think hard to say years ahead, because we had one of the APC officials, APC Professionals Forum, who was saying Nigerians need to wait, maybe give him the president 2 more years before they can start filling some of those policies. And but we're quick to remind him, well, much as he may be of that opinion, but the president himself did say, look, I sought for this, don't pity me, because he's expected to fold the sleeves and what do we always say, hit the ground running, as they say.
Yeah.
But the onus now lies on his lieutenants. All those other ministers who are there, they are the ones who should fly with those policies. And if they're not seen doing the right things, you'll get this kind of backlash.
Absolutely.
So who knows? I think next time I will look at the performance of the ministers and see who's doing what. We'll look at those ministries one after the other and see if the scorecard is what Nigerians expect. Thank you for coming on, Lalu Akonde, former presidential aide.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so that is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain. So goodbye.
Do have a wonderful and productive day. I'm Ayo Makinde.